Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, as you could see with the title, I am going to review two sunscreens which claim to be mattifying. So the first sunscreen is a sunscreen which I reviewed very recently from the Hungarian brand Geek and Gorgeous, and it is called the Zero Feel. The second sunscreen is a sunscreen which I already reviewed almost 2 years ago from the French brand SVR, and it is called the Optical Blur. So recently when I reviewed the Geek and Gorgeous sunscreen, in the video several times I mentioned that sunscreen reminds me in different ways of both sunscreens from the brand SVR, the Photo Age and the Optical Blur. Of those two sunscreens, the one that is mattifying is the Optical Blur. So I wanted to compare a mattifying sunscreen with another mattifying sunscreen and try to see more clearly what are the similarities and the differences, because if I am wondering about those, you might be wondering about those as well. I must say that for many years, brands only focus on moisturizing sunscreens, which gives dewy results, which are the worst for oily skin. So I am happy to see more brands trying to make mattifying sunscreens, although it's a tiny bit of brands, but it's still better than a few years ago when it seemed that no brand was interested on making a mattifying sunscreen. So before we start, my skin type currently is mainly oily. It is oily on the T-zone, but it is also oily on the cheeks. So the only part of my skin which are normal right now are on the sides of my face here. And as we enter summertime more and more, my face is going to be fully oily. Doing this video, I was very lucky because the weather in Paris has been very changing those past few weeks. So I was able to test it under lower and higher temperature. The minimum was 20 degrees and the maximum was 33 degrees. And I was able to test both sunscreens under those temperatures, and I filmed all of it for you. Here are the two sunscreens side by side, and they both come in a simple tube, but the Geek and Gorgeous one comes in a larger bottle, which I appreciate. Both nozzles are also simple, but I would say that if you are not careful with the Geek and Gorgeous sunscreen, it can get a bit messy around the nozzle and in the cap, as the texture can leak more easily. Also, be aware that the orangey color of the SVR sunscreen can stain white fabrics. Both sunscreens have different textures at first, but as you blend them, they end up feeling very similar on the skin. So this is my oily skin with no moisturizer on it. It looked a bit oilier in real life, especially on my T-zone and cheeks. Just by using my hand, you can see some shine here coming from my forehead. Just like with any sunscreen application, I wipe my face first to remove the excess sebum before applying my sunscreen. And I'm going to start to apply the SVR sunscreen. The thick pasty texture is not easy to spread at first, but as you massage it onto the skin, the texture becomes thinner, like a super thin paste that is much easier to spread on the skin. And I like that the paste or foam, as they call it, disappears super fast, even when you apply a good amount of product. It leaves a glow finish at first that will go away quickly, as you'll see. Now it's the turn of a Geek and Gorgeous sunscreen. The gel cream texture is easy to spread on the skin. As you massage it, the gel cream texture changes and weirdly feels very similar to the SVR sunscreen, like a thin paste. The formula seems to grip the skin and quickly set into a kind of film. It dries down rapidly and initially leaves a natural satin finish. I always wait a couple of minutes before I finish the application by gently wiping my face of any excess glow to get the final look. And once I have done that, you can see that the look is very similar on both sides. It is a true matte finish, but this initial true matte look does not last on my oily skin. It will quickly turn into a satin matte finish, or a satin natural finish, or a natural glow finish, depending on the temperature. Because it was very hot a couple of weeks ago, I decided to test both sunscreens under a true summer hot weather, and this is the results after 6 hours. Both look like a natural glow finish, which are great results for me and my oily skin under such intense weather. Because of the high heat and sweat, you can see some residue of the sunscreen. First, you can see some residue on the side of my nose as I wore sunglasses for a couple of hours. And second, near my hairline with both brands, although there is a bit more on the Geek and Gorgeous side. This glow and residue disappear quickly as I wiped my face, and the finish turns into a natural satin finish with both brands. On the screen here, I'm showing you the different information on those sunscreens. In pink, you have the similarities. In green and orange, you have the differences, which are the pros and cons of each sunscreens. I put some warning signs, so I'm going to focus on those instead of reading everything. Let's start with the price. In blue, you can see the price for the product itself and for the same quantity of product. So for the same quantity of product, Geek and Gorgeous is cheaper than SVR. The price of SVR varies a lot here because when you buy it in France, on the website the price is 21 euros, but for this type of products, most French people will buy it at the French pharmacy on any street or at any French pharmacies online, and there the price can be much cheaper. The average price is 13 euros, and this product is often on discount at 9 euros. But generally, the Geek and Gorgeous sunscreen is gonna be cheaper than SVR. I put a warning sign for the invisible aspect. Regarding Geek and Gorgeous, it is something that I've already told on the video dedicated to this product. On my dark skin, when I am done applying this sunscreen and I wipe it a bit for my face, it gives a powdery finish which can make my skin tone look dull and a bit grayish. This does not last on my skin because I have oily skin, so the powdery finish disappears when my oil comes through, but it is something that you should know, especially if you have a dark skin complexion. Regarding the SVR sunscreen, on me it is fully invisible. This is a sunscreen that I reviewed 2 years ago, and since then I had the time to see other reviews. I also saw a few comments on my own reviews where people who have very fair skin would say that this sunscreen who has an orangey tint will leave an orange tint on their face. So if you have very fair skin, be aware of that. The main difference to me is the texture. I don't mind the texture for the SVR sunscreen. I have been using it for a while, but I know it's not for everyone. Some people are annoyed with this texture. So if you want a friendly texture, Geek and Gorgeous is the sunscreen for you. My conclusion after this trial, and obviously I've tried both sunscreens even more than what you saw on the video. So my conclusion is that I like both sunscreens in terms of results on how it looks and how it feels on the skin after you are done applying it and you wait a little bit. In my opinion, the result, the feeling is the same. As I explained throughout the video, although those sunscreens claim to be mattifying, if you have oily skin, don't expect your skin to stay matte when it's super hot. But for sure, your skin will look less oily or greasy than most sunscreens, including many sunscreens which are supposedly made for oily skin, because most of them are crap for oily skin. If you have oily skin, you know. I forgot to mention that in the video, but I like both sunscreens under makeup. In the cooler weather, I can use them on their own under my makeup, but during summertime, I need something else. You need a good primer, you need another type of mattifying sunscreen. But in the summertime, for oily skin, it's not gonna be enough on its own unless you have a superb mattifying foundation, which I don't have. And at the same time, because the texture is not thin, in my opinion, it is not practical to use a regular primer above this sunscreen because the texture is too thick for me to use a regular primer on top of it, because the texture already kind of reminds me of a primer. But let me know in the comment section if you have ever tried those sunscreens and if you used a primer on top. But personally, I don't like to have thick layers on top of each other, so I wouldn't use a regular primer on top of those sunscreens. But in cooler months, I can use them on their own as a sunscreen and as a primer under my makeup. I feel that if you have normal skin, if you are also tired about greasy formulas and formulas which are too thick, you might enjoy those sunscreens, but you will definitely need to use a moisturizing serum or a moisturizing lotion underneath these sunscreens. And probably for you, the result will stay matte. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching until the end, and I will see you on the next video. Bye bye.